Hey, how's it going? It's your boy, Challenger Coach Adam Moriarty here to bring you another champion guide for dummies, but this time it's for Fiddlesticks, who might be one of the coolest and creepiest champions out there. First up, I just want to put some time aside and just talk about how awesome and creepy and scary he looks. I really think there could be like a horror movie based off of this guy. Riot just did an amazing job. And best of all, to celebrate the launch of Fiddle, we're doing a huge giveaway with Alienware. There's a link below to their game Spinaway, and the lucky winners will get one of these Fiddlesticks skins. You can keep playing, but only win once, unfortunately. This is for NA folks only though, but there is also a link to another giveaway for all you international people too, so don't worry. But before we go too in depth on the champion overall, with this rework, what they kinda did is they kept his old identity as a champion, but they made him better overall. Even though this video is going to focus on his main role as a jungler, he's currently mostly played as a support, and we still think he's going to be playable in that role as well. Some of you might be wondering what his role on a team is right now after the rework, or some key differences between the new and old champion. Compared to the old Fiddle, new Fiddlesticks will be more impactful in teamfight situations due to his new passive on Q, Dread, which allows all of his abilities to terrify enemies if unseen, meaning if you land a 5-man ultimate while out of vision, you will fear 5 members of the enemy team for 2 seconds of max rank, which means just an absurd AP disruptor in a fight is going to appear on the Rift now. At that point, if you don't win the fight, I don't know what to tell you. It's probably time to FF. Now, I know with the current version of Fiddlesticks, his late game is kinda underwhelming because everyone's so tanky and he might not have the damage to kill people, but the new Fiddlesticks will no longer feel useless after 30 minutes due to his Q dealing % current health damage and his W dealing missing health damage. It's kinda like an execute. This will allow Fiddlesticks to transition better into the late game while not feeling like all you do is ult Hourglass and then die, although that's kinda still his play pattern. When you combine that with the 5-man fear potential, we're talking about some real scary carry potential when he engages in the late game. So the main takeaways are old Fiddle, not scary late game. New Fiddle, Scarecrow from Batman levels of scary late game. This guy's gonna be a huge monster. And next up, we're gonna go over each of his new abilities and go over what they do and where they can be used. For his passive, Fiddlesticks is no longer gonna have to buy a trinket. He's gonna get an effigy instead, which is gonna act like a trinket, and then at level 6 is gonna act like a trinket and a scanner. All you really need to do is put down the clone, and then that's it. You'll be able to keep 2 charges of it like a normal trinket, with its CD going down to 30 seconds level 18, which is kinda nuts. Oh, and I forgot to mention, that thing actually fakes a random action when an opponent sees it for the first time, meaning it can fake ult, fake drain, fake E, and I've actually seen it flash on PvE too, but I'm not 100% they'll keep that. So not only are you gonna get a 2-for-1 deal on trinkets, but you can pull off some pretty spooky mind games too. His Q Terrify is pretty much the same as before. It's a targeted fear, but it's just simply better now, because not only is it still targeted, but it deals % current HP damage while having a passive where if you're unseen and out of combat, your abilities will fear as well. You heard right, that last part is the big reason why Fiddle is such a threat now, because it means if you hit a 5-man E from Fog or a 5-man ult from Fog while having the Dread passive up, it's a 5-man fear and that's a 1 fight. And if that wasn't enough, his Q does double damage versus people who are already feared instead of just re-fearing them, which is huge for his burst potential. His W, Bountiful Harvest, it's your drain, is also the same as before, but simply better now because it's AoE, it sucks anything in its range, there are no maximum targets, and it has missing health execute on the last tick of the channel, as well as a cooldown resetting if the enemy is killed or the channel ends of natural causes. So yeah, this rework so far has turned out pretty good so far. His E Reap, this might be the only side grade of his new kit as it's a skill shot now, and it's a crescent shape where it slows for around 1.25 seconds while also dealing damage and silencing if it's in the middle of the skill shot. Honestly though, this might still be better than the old D in certain situations, as I like the addition of the slow onto the ability over it being targeted bounce machine it once was. His Arc Rose Storm is still the strongest part of his kit, it's just more incentivized to ult from Fog of War so you can get those multiple AoE fears down from the Q passive compared to the old Fiddlesticks. Plus he looks cooler while using it, and it's also a lower tick rate, meaning people aren't just going to walk out in between ticks and potentially live. Next up, we're going to go over how to clear the jungle as the new Fiddlesticks and also any combos that he actually may have. So first up, clearing the jungle is a little tricky at first, but his clear is incredibly fast and healthy and might be one of the best in the game. Because of the way his drain works now, where it can hit multiple people, he's got so many different paths that don't even need a leash, but in my opinion, his best clear is for red side, when you're gonna hit the red and tag the raptors too and do them at the same time. It's pretty broken actually, and then you're gonna skip Krugs, you're gonna kill the wolves, and do the same thing for Gromp and Blue. You're gonna kill them at the same time. All you gotta do is pull them together, smite the blue buff, and this gives you a 5 camp clear with no leash, with smite up before Scuttle spawns if you do it properly. I'm sure people are going to come up with some new paths to abuse with the fact that you can do the multiple camps at the same time, but this is the one I think will be the most standard for him starting off. You can reverse the path on blue side by doing blue Gromp at level 1, or by starting on wolves and then doing blue Gromp, followed by chickens and then red at the same time, and then ending on Krugs. In matchups, you think he can't really contest the scuttle. And that's kind of it for the Fiddlesticks clears. Now for his combos, I mean, it's Fiddlesticks. Even if it's new Fiddlesticks, he isn't going to have anything fancy. You're going to look for that R into Q into E and then drain. That's pretty much it for Fiddlesticks. You don't want to auto tech in between abilities like other champions unless you're kind of walking up next to people and you want to troll them a little bit. He is a champion that is more reliant on his abilities. I can kind of only imagine like a Ribbonman or something testing out Fiddlesticks and then just trying to animation cancel autos in between abilities, and then she's just going to miss out on a kill because Drain didn't finish it off, because you really want Drain to get that execute damage for the missing HP. That's a big part of his ability to kill people now. Moral of the story is, you're just going to R in, you're going to hit that Q for the double damage, then you're going to delay the E so that you can chain the silence a little bit more, although it's not always necessary, and then you can walk up to get into a better drain position, hit that W, get the execution damage, and that's it. That's comboing with Fiddlesticks. Let's get into how to build the new Fiddlesticks, and it's pretty much the same. Starting items, you're gonna go Talisman and Refillable Potion. I know a lot of Fiddlesticks mains like swear by going Control Ward, and I agree it's pretty good, but the standard person will likely go Refillable Potion. For your core items, it's gonna be Runic Echoes with Blue Smite and then Hourglass Sork Shoes. If they're stacking MR, you can follow that up with a Void Staff, but most of the time it'll just be Morellos. For the full build after that, you're gonna buy your Death Cap, and then you're gonna finish it off with the Void Staff, or you can just slot in Void Staff whenever you think you need it. For situational items, if they went QSS or have a lot of cleanse on the enemy team, then you're going to want to pick up a Rallies. If the enemy team stacked a lot of HP, you can go Leandries, and then last item, you can pick up a Banshee's Veil sometimes if you feel like you actually need the Spell Shield. All in all, he doesn't have a lot of situational items to choose from. Pretty simple. Right now for the jungle, I feel runes are pretty similar to the old ones. You're gonna go Electrocute, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, and Relentless Hunter. Over Ultimate Hunter, I know a lot of people like that one, but statistically, Relentless just does way better. There is the option to go Dark Harvest or Predator for your Keystone, but Electrocute's just more consistent, but you can try those out too if you like them. As for your secondary rune options, you're gonna go Inspiration Secondary for that Stopwatch and Cosmic Insight, although if you want to be a little bit spicy, you can try out Hex Flash. Also, there is the option to go Nimbus Cloak with Water Walking or Nimbus Cloak and Transcendence. It's also performing pretty well right now. For his leveling sequence, you're gonna want to go W, then E, and then Q for your first 3 levels, and then after that, you're gonna 3-point your W, max Q, and then finish off by maxing E and then W. This level sequence is gonna give you the best ability to clear while also giving you the best use out of your Q passive and a little bit of extra damage. For his power spikes, they're to be expected, and they're the exact same as before. You got level 6, level 11, and level 16. Why? Because he is not a champion without his ultimate still. His item spikes are first going to be Runic Echoes because it gives him that ability to clear the jungle faster and gives him the damage that he needs to pull off ganks. After that, it's going to be Hourglass, as it's going to allow him to actually engage like a degenerate and actually survive. And then the last item spike is going to be his Death Cap, where he has the true ability to kill a whole team. Now that we got the proper setup for Fiddlesticks and we know exactly what he does, let's go over how to play him in the early game. So step number 1 is, if you're against an aggressive jungler like Olaf or Lee Sin, you want to mirror the matchup. For instance, if you know Lee Sin is going to start on red buff, you will most likely also want to start on red buff in order to mirror his movements to avoid getting counter jungled or get your crab contested. If you manage to take a crab or get a good gank off in those kind of matchups, it becomes really easy. So all you need to do is just do exactly the same passes they're doing so that you don't run into them. Step number 2, if you're against a farm heavy champion that wants to hit 6 like Karthus and Mumu Shyvana, you also want to do a full clear into Scuttle Crab if no lane is pushed or gankable. You're just going to recall and then do it again and hit 6 as fast as possible so you can impact the map, because Fiddlesticks level 6 might be one of the best level 6 power spikes out of any jungler. Step number 3, another thing you want to note is that he is also extremely strong at counter ganking early on due to his Q passive because of the Dread. If you actually get that fear off in a 2v2 and get the double damage Q and then hit both with the Reap, it's just, oh man, plus you got that AoE W execute, it just sounds so juicy. So if you can ever get yourself into a counter gank situation before level 6, it's actually pretty good to go for. Step number 4, another tip for the early game is similar to the old Fiddlesticks, you can solo dragon pretty easily. So if the enemy jungler makes the mistake of actually, going to top lane, you can just solo the dragon. It's something you should actively be looking to do. Plus with the effigies, it becomes easier to actually make sure it's not warded. Step number 5, okay, all that stuff is all good and all, but realistically, your main goal as Fiddlesticks is still the same. You're gonna hit 6, then you're gonna ult a lane with no flash or a high priority carry lane, and then you're gonna do a neutral objective or take a tower right after. And then all you do is rinse repeat this process. Don't forget, you're also really good at tower diving low HP players, so keep that in mind. Next up, let's go over how to team fight with the Fiddlesticks, and it's actually pretty simple. Step number 1, you're gonna stay out of vision. You're gonna use pings to clear vision, you're gonna use your effigies to clear vision, and you're gonna make sure that you can set up your Dread passive for that juicy 5-man ult. Step number 2, once you find the opportunity to ultimate, you're gonna use the ult, and then you're just gonna use your normal ult combo. You're gonna burn flash to get into rage for important fights like dragons, baron, or an ace to get a shutdown. I mean, this sounds simple and all, but I can't stress it enough how important it is to save your flash on Fiddlesticks for important objective fights. You don't want to burn it on getting a pick on that 05 Ezreal player. It's just not worth it. Save it for important moments because you don't get a lot of flashes in a game. Step number 3, once you're in the middle of that team fight and you used your flash at the appropriate time to win an important team fight, then you're just going to hit Zhonya's. Then you're going to wait for your second rotation of abilities, and, at that point in time, either you've killed your opponents or you're dead, but either way, your watch is over and the team fight is ended. One thing I will mention though is that the mechanics behind team fighting as Fiddle obviously aren't that difficult, but it's the knowledge of knowing when to engage and where to engage. The when to engage is mostly down for, when the enemy team looks to siege a tower or when primary targets get in range of your ultimate when they're contesting neutral objectives. As for where, I'm going to put up some common ult spots that Fiddlesticks players like to use so people that are learning him or playing against him will know what to expect. And I guess I'm not the one putting it on the screen, it's my editor, who by the way does a fantastic job and does not get enough credit on these videos, so give him a shout out. And also, if you're looking at that image and you're seeing a lot of places that you need to check, that's because there is. And that's what makes him so annoying to play against. You forget one of these places at just one point in the game and you might just get one shot and throw the whole game into a Baron. It's so obnoxious. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not looking forward to him being in the meta and having to deal with this every single game. For the next section, let's look at champions that are going to work really well with the reworked Fiddlesticks, or just Fiddlesticks in general. First up, we have AoE wombo combo champions like Orianna and Rumble, who, when you combine your AoEs together, you'll just kill a whole team. Outside of that, he also works extremely well with AD solo laners, things like Zed or Talon for mid lane, or even stuff like Darius, Garen, Wukong for top lane. I actually can't even imagine surviving an ult combo from Fiddlesticks Garen or Darius. And then you have an entire team that can just get one rotation by Fiddlesticks 5-man fear into 5-man double knockup from Wukong. Man, okay, that new Fiddlesticks is looking pretty hype for team fights. Also, if you're wondering, the reason why he does so well with AD solo laners is it's just really hard to itemize against him in that sense. It's very common for people to have to rush arm guard or go Tobbies early on, which means people will not have Merc Treads to reduce his damage or his CC, making the ganks really easy to pull off. In terms of actually countering Fiddlesticks, champions he's going to struggle against are aggressive champions that like to snowball and invade. Things like Olaf, Lee Sin, he still really can't deal with them. Obviously he's a better dueler than before, but still not enough to deal with an ulting Olaf. Another type of champion that he's worse against is champions that outrange him and outscale him. There's not a lot of those in the jungle, but a good example is Karthus, who is someone that can match or even beat his clear speed while just not having to commit to fights and then hitting R and doing pretty much the same thing as Fiddlesticks without having to die. In terms of items or things like that can counter Fiddlesticks, QSS is really good, Cleanse is really good, Zhonya's is really good, Banshee's is really good, pretty much any kind of MR. Adaptive Helm specifically is really strong. Basically, if he's not CCing you, a lot of the times you can walk out of the drain and not get hit by the execute portion, and that's the big thing you need to realize. So, number 1, Cleanse, Merc Treads, really strong. Also, in terms of countering his playstyle, whenever you're sieging a tower or preparing for a neutral objective, always, and I mean always, ask yourselves, where the heck is Fiddlesticks? Because if he goes in for a counter engage and you accidentally funneled into a choke point, you're gonna lose. If you get flanked by him, you're gonna lose while you're sieging a tower too. So you always need to find Fiddlesticks before you attempt any risky engages, any tower dives, or if you're just going for a neutral objective in general. Please find the Fiddlesticks before you do anything aggressive. It's kind of like Where's Waldo, except if you fail, you don't die. Like normal, let's do a TLDR on the new Fiddlesticks. New Fiddlesticks is better in the late game compared to the old one and isn't completely useless at that point in the game, while also being a better AoE team fighter than the previous version, plus he's better looking. Passive now replaces a trinket that lets him place clones around the map that give vision and deny vision post 6. They also do a random action when they're first seen, which is, kind of spooky. Q now has a passive that fears people on first ability if unseen and out of combat while near him. His Q now also does current HP damage, and it's still point and click fear, but if they're already feared due to that passive, it does double damage instead. W is the same drain as before, but it's AoE now and has missing health execute at the end if you finish your channel naturally. His E is now a swipe that slows but also silences in the center of the skill shot. It's pretty impossible to miss though because of how fast it is, but you know, you're welcome to try and prove me wrong. R is the same ability, but the tick rate is faster, which is nice. The jungle clear is red and raptors at the same time, then wolves, then gromp and blue at the same time, smite the blue, and then you're gonna do scuttle crab and still have smite for it. His normal engage combo is RQE and then drain, and there's no real reason to auto attack unless you have red buff. Items are talisman refillable potion, although I know true Fiddlesticks mains swear by starting control ward. Your full build will look something like Blue Smite, Runic Echo, Zhonya's, Morella's, Deathcap, Void Stab, with situational items being Leandri's, Rallies, and Banshee's Veil. Runes, you're gonna go Electrocute, and then secondary, you're gonna take Inspiration for that Stopwatch and Cosmic Insight, although Nimbus Cloak Water Walking is doing pretty good too. Loving sequence is WEQ for the first 3 levels, then you're gonna 3-point your W, followed by maxing Q and then E, although this could change. Power spikes are 6, 11, 16, because you know he's still alt-reliant champion. For items, it's Runic Echoes, then Zhonya's, and then Hat of Death. Early game, you're going to rush 6, you're going to counter gank starting at level 3 because it's pretty good. Remember, you can solo objectives pretty well, and you also need to be careful of aggressive junglers. You farm extremely quickly, so if you have to give up a scuttle or 2, it's not the biggest a deal, you'll stay even on XP. Team fighting, your only job is to really find a good hiding spot, and then clear vision with pinks or your effigies, and then just ulti combo someone. In terms of synergies, he has really good synergy with other AoE wombo mages like Rumble Orianna, AD assassins like Zed Talon or Pyke, or AoE bruisers / juggernauts like Darius, Garen, or Wukong. He's weak against early invade champions like Lee Sin or Olaf, or things like Karthus that outscale him without having to get into the fights themselves. Also, you really need to track Fiddle before important fights. I can't stress this enough, it's so important. And I'll also quickly add my opinions of the new Fiddlesticks. I think he's going to be a really strong champion, he's a lot better than the old one, he looks pretty cool. Is he going to be competitively viable? I actually think he will be. And I think they did a really good job on this rework. Oh, and I guess some people are still going to play him support. He should be decent in that role, and some people might try him in a solo lane, but I really don't think he's going to be that strong in a solo lane. That's it, so thank you everyone for watching our Fiddlesticks guide. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any comments on how to improve the format, let me know. Besides that, make sure to check out our other content on this channel, as well as at Mobalytics.gg. As always, I'm Moriarty, and may the new and old Soloki gods be with you.